Greetings, YouTube. I want you to entertain a thought for me for a second to start off this video. Imagine you've been dating someone for a couple of years now, and even after a couple of years, you're still very much attracted to this person. But most importantly, this person is your rock. They are as reliable and dependable as it gets, and you know when the going gets tough, you can always lean on this person to help you out of any situation because they are the definition, the textbook definition of a great partner to have in life. But see, the human condition is a funny thing. And sometimes the longer you date someone, the longer you are in the battle with someone, the more that you start to take that person for granted because as things become more routine, you tend to just expect them to be there, and you overlook how valuable that is versus the average person that you could be dating or going through life with. And so your eye starts to wander, and slowly but surely, suddenly that secretary at the office or that person you always get your coffee from looks more and more appetizing because they're new and exciting and maybe even a little bit dangerous. And so you eventually decide it's in your best interest to break up with the beautiful, stable, dependable, but maybe a little boring partner, and you end up jumping into a quick fling with the barista down the street, not realizing that if it goes horribly wrong, you are suddenly left haunted by what you took for granted after several years of work and commitment. That analogy may sound strange to some, but I truly believe that analogy is spot on to how we as content creators sometimes overhype new champions in Marvel Contest of Champions. I've seen this throughout the last few years of YouTube, and even though I've only had a channel for about a year and a half now, I saw this when Proxima Midnight came up. And suddenly so many content creators were calling her Star-Lord 2.0. You need to break up with your Star-Lord and you need to get yourself a Proxima Midnight. So much better than Star-Lord. No one's saying that now. Why? Because the ramp-up time is insane and it takes a lot more skill to get to her maximum potential than it would a Star-Lord who you're just worrying about getting a combo as high as possible. It is also important to point out in that analogy that you are dealing with someone who was overhyped because the community forgot, oh yeah, Labyrinth of Legends damage is capped at like, what, 50,000? So even though she might be able to do more than that, it's not going to be able to have an advantage in that setting anyway. So all that's to say, we've seen those champions. We've seen, if you can believe this, the most overhyped champion I've ever seen in my life was Mr. Kingpin. There were content creators that I still love and respect that actually told everybody this is the champion that you need to spend your hoarded 15,000 plus 5-star shards on. And some people actually got him. And there are videos on YouTube that you can look up of people acting like they just won the video game when they pulled a 5-star Kingpin. And then talk about buyer's remorse as better champions became more into the void, if you will. No pun intended, actually. As better skilled champions, especially the likes of Blade and Killmonger, even Gwenpool, were suddenly that 15,000 shards for Kingpin, a truly average defender, I would say at this point, and certainly not someone that I know that anybody brings in for attack. It was overhyped. The new shiny toy was not pulled into fruition. So I say all of this to say that I try to be as responsible as possible when talking about whether or not you should go for a new champion because I don't want to be a propaganda wing for Kabam on my channel. I want to promote guaranteed value, and I want to promote champions that I think will really help you, but certain people have a better chance at utilizing certain champions, especially depending on your roster, and that kind of brings us to this video today. I also want to point out that the opposite can happen too. I think that content creators, myself included, really didn't value Sabretooth as much as we should have when he was first introduced, and certainly Corvus Glaive was the most underhyped champion of all time. The Corvus 5-star arena, after several fluke things happened, like a ban wave was sent, so a lot of the bots were not able to compete in the arena. The 5-star Corvus Glaive went for under 20 million at one point, which is unheard of. If you had that same Corvus arena now, you would see, I would guess, close to 70 million plus for that champion. And those of you who have a 6-star Corvus, it probably feels like you've won the mobile video game. So the opposite can happen in all seriousness. This brings us to the skateboarded wonder who comes into the contest today in the form of the arena. And this is someone who we have seen for the last 24 hours since the new event quest has been active. His animations, he's intriguing. He kind of reminds me, like, he looks like Vision to me. You see that? And also has, of course, a skateboard. Kind of looks like Nightcrawler a little bit to me in terms of some of his fluidity. But I kind of think of him most likely as a massacre, a skateboarded massacre. And I will say that Kabam has done a very shady job with the special one because I have glasses, and it's still hard for me to see that dang little projectile he shoots out. It goes and hits you at about the speed of Agent Venom's Special 2, so it's not like it's super quick. But if you kind of lose it and you don't dexterity correctly, at least not in the Uncollected, which is the only time I've faced him so far, you will get wrecked, and it doesn't matter if you block it, you will die. So, just something to think about. I believe Night Thrasher is a unique champion that is best served for those of you that have Ghost Rider. And so, yes, you can read all about his animations and his info, but I'm not going to waste your time with this because I don't want this to be a 15-minute video because, as you know, I value your time and want there to be the quality of information over the quantity on my channel as much as possible. So we're going to scroll all the way down. Now, if you have the Holy Trinity of MCOC, the quote-unquote Holy Trinity, the Blade, Stark, Spidey, and Ghost Rider, then you're going to want to think about Night Thrasher because he does make Ghost Rider, who is traditionally still, even though he's a very, very good champion and someone that got everything right that Nicolas Cage got wrong in the Ghost Rider movie, he's probably, I think objectively, the weakest part of those three, just because Blade and Stark Spidey are two of the top 5 best champions in the game. But Ghost Rider does become a lot more OP when you add Night Thrasher to your roster. Now, I will say as a disclaimer that I believe one of the best things you can do to diversify your starting 5, as I like to call it as a sports analogy, is to get as many different classes in the lineup as possible so you have a class advantage in most fights, no matter who you come up against in the path. This is why I still think the best starting 5 that I've seen, at least for me, is the Holy Trinity, Ghost Rider, Stark, Spidey, and Blade, adding in Hyperion and Iceman, who have great synergies, crazy immunities, just 2 fantastic champions, and also that's 5 different classes. So that's my starting 5 that I've worked very hard for a couple of years now to develop and rank up. But Night Thrasher does make Ghost Rider better. So we're going to scroll all the way down to the synergies for those of you that haven't seen this yet, because this is really what makes this character, this champion, at least to me, so intriguing. So synergy bonuses. You have this. First, you have Midnight Pursuit, which does sound like an adult film to me. Medium attacks have a 30% chance to inflict bleed, dealing 50% of base attack as direct damage over 3 seconds. As the moon waxes, the chance to bleed on medium attacks is 100%. So yes, this is a Moon Knight type of synergy. The Punisher, though, the duration of bleeds are increased 40%. I believe, especially the 5-star Punisher, for those of you that have been lucky enough to pull him in a uncollected arena crystal, 5-star Punisher is pretty darn sick. And his special 3 is incredible. You could easily just wreck people. Obviously, if you're going up against bleed immune champs, this takes a big step back. But for those of you that aren't, the duration of bleeds increased by 40%, especially with deep wounds maxed, is a crazy long time, especially for like his special 3. So I think that Punisher just got way better thanks to this synergy. And yes, they both are skilled champions, but still. But here's what I love. Justice on Wheels sounds like a new Carrie Underwood song. Night Thrasher becomes unstoppable when dashing towards the enemy. We have seen this, at least in the uncollected difficulty. Now, I don't think this is the biggest thing to overcome. You treat it like you would Rhino, where you hold block and you have him retaliate with his heavy attack. And by the time you dash back and then charge forward, the unstoppable does not last long enough to stay. So you can counter then with your own combo, but you definitely don't want to intercept when Night Thrasher is charging at you because the unstoppable will cancel out anything you try to do and you will most likely be knocked out immediately. But Ghost Rider, this is the big selling point of the video, and this is the reason why I'm making this video, to be honest. The duration of Bleed, Fate Seal, and Damnation are increased by 40%. Now, I just want to point this out. 40% is a long time. Let's say it's 6 seconds long. Well, 50% of 6 is 3. So what, another 2.5 seconds? That could be a tremendous difference between whether or not you stay alive in a fight, especially with Ghost Rider and the Holy Trinity synergies as it is. So I really think if you are somebody that loves to play with Punisher especially, or Ghost Rider, I'm not going to put Moon Knight in this because the moon phase determines how good Moon Knight is, and so I don't like champions that are better at certain times of the month than others. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But for Punisher and Ghost Rider, this is a champion that you want to go after. However, I'm not saying this to say go blow all your units on Grandmaster featured crystals, which are overall the worst value in the game as far as units versus guaranteed value. I'm just saying this in terms of a long-form plan. I think if you look at this and you want to commit to this, especially if you take in like a Ghost Rider on Alliance War Attack, you're going to really want to think about adding him in this case. So what do you think? Will you be going for Night Thrasher in the arena or otherwise? Comment below and let me know. And as always, thank you for listening to my commentary and even my occasionally bizarre, but dare I say it, trying to be accurate analogies about the fields of dating and how that is applicable to your experience in Marvel Contest of Champions.